Hey Dave, we finally made it to Hollywood.
Yeah, we're not here to hang with the stars, we're here to make you a star.
Hi, I'm Ken Climo.
Hi, I'm Dave Feldberg.
Welcome to Flying Disc Magazine's new DVD series, Disc Golf, Learn to Play the Champion's Way. Today we're going to take you through some basic fundamentals for you beginners.
And for those of you who've been chasing the chains for years, this is your chance to catch up and brush up on fundamentals the right way. We will cover techniques in this video guaranteed to improve your game. And along the way, we'll offer hot tips that are guaranteed to take your game to the next level.
Since the origins of the sport in the late 1970s, disc golf has come a long way. For example, the advancements in disc technology has enabled us to attain great distances with our golf discs.
These advancements have brought us to this, a disc not meant to be caught by your buddy, it was designed to be caught by the chains. Today we're going to take you to the modern disc golf era, disc golf the right way, the champion's way.
All right, let's get to it. For those of you new to the sport, let's cover some of the basics. Like traditional golf, there are a lot of similarities. The courses, the boundaries, the scoring, and the hazards you can counter are all very similar. The major differences between the two are in traditional golf, you're using a leverage device to propel a stationary object. In disc golf, your whole body is the leverage device. In traditional golf, you're looking down, focusing on the ball. In disc golf, there are many more distractions because your sight line is on the horizon. And let me tell you, after 21 years of played with thousands of different people, I've seen all types of distractions. Here's a brief example of some basic rules of etiquette to follow when you head out on the course. The number one distraction in disc golf is talking while someone else is trying to shoot. Movement, I mean all types of movement. Anytime anyone is throwing a shot, just stand still. Phones, need I say more? And lastly, there's safety. Always stay behind a player when they're throwing a shot. You don't want to get hit and it's very distracting. Above all, common courtesy rules when on the course. Be kind, play fair.
As Kenny described, there's lots of distractions out there on the course. One thing you can do is make sure you're not a distraction to the players. When a player's throwing, they want to have a clear horizon in front of them, and you'll want that when you're shooting too. Whether you're by the basket or by the tee, give players personal space and respect the player, and they'll respect you. In disc golf, there's over 500 discs to choose from, different brands, variations, and styles, but most of this is based on your personal preference. One thing to think about when you buy your first disc is the gram weight. You'll find that on the center of the disc in the back. This one's a 174, just 1 gram short of the max weight, 175 grams. Now if you're a strong thrower, maybe you want to start with max weights, but we recommend for beginners to start with lightweight discs and build up. As you become a better golfer, maybe you'll fall in love with max weight discs just like Champ and I have. I'm known on the professional tour for carrying the most discs in my bag. If you can believe it, all of these discs came out of my bag. But in this video, we're going to talk about 4 particular types of discs. The putter, the distance driver, the fairway driver, and the mid-range disc. We want to recommend the KC AVR. It's the best putter that we've ever found. Also, I have my new signature model disc, the Boss. This is the fastest disc on the market, and if you want distance, this is the disc you want. If you want control and you want to keep your disc in the fairway, I would go with the Ken Climo T-Bird, as it is the most controlled driver on the market. And finally, for mid-range, again, I would go with the Ken Climo Rock, as it's the best mid-range disc I've ever thrown. When purchasing discs, there's one thing to think about. It's the most important aspect. It's understanding stability. Now, understanding stability is very crucial because if you buy the wrong disc at the store, even though it's shiny and pretty, you'll get out to the course and not have a good time, and I want you to have a good time on the course. Stability does not refer to how much the disc moves right to left or left to right, as you may have thought. Stability refers to what the disc is trying to do in the air. And what an overstable disc is trying to do is reach the ground. So, as a disc flies, if it's overstable, it tilts, and it's not trying to go left like it looks, it's trying to get to the ground. you don't want to buy an overstable disc. You're trying to get a disc that's going to fly as long as possible so that you can get the most out of your first throws. You want to buy a disc that's not overstable. You want to buy a disc that's understable. Look on the graphics and all the pro shops you can find, and you'll find the discs that are below certain levels of stability. You want understable. Now, let me talk about stability some more. When throwing a disc, the things to think about is how a disc is flying. Now, stability, most people think, if I want to throw a disc to the left, I'm going to get out a very overstable disc and throw it to the left. But that's not the case. Let me give you a little story. One time on my tour, I was traveling to Florida and I played against the great Ken Climo. And I had the lead on Ken going into the final round. But at the last second, it got real windy and we played the last 10 holes going to the left. And I threw my most overstable disc over and over again, but yet they wouldn't hyzer into the left so that I could park the hole. When I looked over, Ken was parking every shot, and I couldn't believe he was throwing a T-bird, a control beat-up T-bird that was very understable. So I got discouraged and couldn't figure out why it is my disc wouldn't go to the left, and he explained to me stability. Now, what I mean by that is an understable disc thrown with hyzer is still going to try to go left, but as it flies, it's going to try to flatten up. So as it flattens up, it's still trying to fly and go forward, and when it lands, it skips forward in a way so that you can get more distance. But if you're going to throw an overstable disc, like this one, what happens is it goes out in the air and it dives to the ground as fast as it can and skips to the left and dives. So one thing to do to test this theory is go out to the field, take one of your understable drivers and one of your overstable drivers. Take the overstable driver out, throw it out with hyzer, and see how far left it goes off the center line. Then take your understable driver and commit to a hyzer line like we're going to teach you in the video and see the difference of how far left it goes. I think you'll be surprised to find out that your disc that's more understable carries farther left as it's trying to stand up and going with stability instead of fighting stability like you do when you buy an overstable disc. So the point of this segment is, when you're out there buying a disc, don't buy the most overstable disc just because it's pretty or it's got a cool name. Buy a disc that's understable so you can get the maximum flight and enjoy your first rounds.
Dave has shown you a lot of different discs. Now let's talk about something equally as important, grips. There are a variety of commonly used grips in the game. The two most common are the fan grip and the power grip. The fan grip is achieved by fanning out your fingers on the bottom of the disc and curling your index finger underneath, creating a fan-looking grip with your thumb pressed out on the top. The power grip is achieved by curling all of your fingers into the rim, every finger touching the inside of the rim. That's called the power grip. The grip that is most effective for me is a hybrid of both those grips that I call the fort grip. I roll my fingers around like a fan, but I stack them on top of each other. My thumb pressing hard down on the top. You get north-south pressure from your thumb to your fingers, and you get east-west pressure from your pinky to the rim of the disc. And why I call it the fort grip is because when I slide the disc out of my hand, I can put a fork into my hand exactly, and that's how I eat. It's a natural hand position. You do it every day of your life.
I think that the two grips that he showed you, the power grip and the fan grip, are great. But when I was throwing the fan grip when I first learned, I could get a lot of accuracy but not much power. And when I threw the power grip, I could get a lot of power but not much accuracy. So I developed a grip that combined the both of them. It looks like this. Now in this grip, you'll see that there's a lot of components. The first component is the pinky. The pinky is going to pull the disc into the hand, giving you that nice squeeze grip. Now, unlike the other grips, these two fingers are going to be in the power grip form, tucked into the rim of the disc to give you your power. That's where you're going to get all your power in the throw. And then finally, you're still going to keep your finger on the bead here, hooked under, and that's going to be your guide. So what you have is, you have the two accuracy fingers and the two power fingers. Now this is going to give you the best of both worlds when you're throwing your disc. So one of the most important things, once you got your fingers placed under the disc, is to place your thumb. Now, if you were going to pick something up, would you pick it up like this? Or would you pick it up like that? No, you would pick it up with the strongest point of your hand, which is right here. So when you have your fingers placed on the disc, you want to put your thumb in a position so it's directly over your index finger. Now this is best seen with see-through discs. So you put it on there, and not with the tip of your thumb, but with the pad of your thumb. And when you take your hand off the disc, it should look like this, okay? So put it back on, and now you have a great grip. Now, I want to talk to you about one thing that's really important when you're learning how to do this grip. You're going to go out, and you're probably going to try it at first, and you're going to throw the disc straight up in there, and it's going to go left, or you're going to turn it straight into the ground to the right. And this is the one thing that people make the mistake all the time, is disposition in the hand. So how to do this is hold your arm straight out, in a position like this and line the disc up with these two veins that run up and down your arm here. Now for me, I have to tilt my wrist down to make that happen. If I just grabbed it naturally like I showed you, it would look like this. But I have to tilt it down to create this flat aspect that runs up my arm. What's important about this is that if you were gonna go out and throw, if you throw nose up and it hyzers out when you try it, that means when you're gripping it, the bottom of the disc is below your wrist level, the line that we created. If you're throwing down into the ground to the right, that means the disc is up too high in your hand, above the wrist line, and you're gonna throw it into the ground. So what you wanna do is try to find the flattest line across your arm by holding the disc out in front of you like this, and that will be the great angle to throw. If you can practice getting your disc flat, you won't go nose up and hyzer out, you won't go into the ground to the right, you'll start throwing them straight down the fairway.
Now that we've taught you how to behave on the course and how to grip your disc, we're going to approach the tee pad.
We're gonna take you to driver's ed, what we like to call throwing 101, driving in the fast lane. Many of you play with a catch disc in your backyard or your friends or at the beach somewhere. Just like Kenny's about to demonstrate, you used to dip down real low and throw the disc nose up with a lot of spin with your finger on the rim. But times have changed and the discs have changed, and now there's the modern golf disc. We'll use modern form in this video to teach you how to throw like a champion, the champion's way. Now that you're on the tee pad, it's time to get into a comfortable stance to throw. First thing is you have to line your body up so that your feet are approximately 90 degrees away from the target. Next thing is you have to have your feet about shoulder length apart so your knees can be bent. Now we got your proper stance. Later on we're going to add the footwork. Now let's talk about the arm swing. Reach back with the arm until the chin is on the shoulder. That is your full reach back. As you come through, you're going to bend your elbow and slowly rotate your torso to match the turn. As soon as your elbow passes your shoulder, you will spring your hand forward as fast as you can, accelerating through the target. Now the classic mistake that we're seeing a lot of times out there teaching is as the player comes through, he forgets to bend his elbow long enough and turns too quickly, eliminating one of the joints. To get maximum distance, you have to use all three of your joints, the wrist, the elbow, and the shoulder, to get maximum distance. Now that you have the arm swing down, let's start to talk about a little bit of the weight transfer. As Champ will show, he's in his stance, he has his arm swing, and when he reaches back, he's going to shift his weight to the back of his left leg. On that quad muscle, he's going to absorb all the weight, and he's going to practice just shifting from the back to the front, rotating on his front ball of his foot, like so. Now, this time, when he rotates through, he's going to try to accelerate after the elbow passes the shoulder and let it go. As you can see, he really transferred his weight from back to front there, and that is the key to any good throw. As you transfer the weight and you reach with the arm, you're going to pull the arm through at the same time you lift your back left leg. As soon as your back left leg comes off the ground, you start reaching with the arm, and the left leg and the right arm will match as they come through the air. Now that we establish a solid base with a good run up and a good arm swing, one of the most crucial points to the throw is something we term the hit. The hit is when power and acceleration meet the millisecond before the release of any shot. As you come through with your arm swing, most people when they're learning try to reach back as far as they can and pull the disc as hard as they can at this point. What happens is all your muscles are contracted. So what happens is everything's stiff, and when you get here, they call it the 10% rule. So if you're reaching at 90%, when you get to the release, you're only at about 80%. Even though you feel like you're reaching as hard as you can and you're pulling as hard as you can through the shot, you're really not. So to get a good throw, and this is the trick of the top pros, is you reach back with a more loose arm. And you come through slower, and as you get across your chest, you start to speed it up, and as soon as the elbow passes the shoulder, you accelerate as fast as you can in the impact zone, causing this hit that people refer to, and that allows the disc to really get out there in the speed. What you're doing at this moment is allowing your muscles to work for you. So when you reach back, you're allowing your muscles to be loose so that they can flex. So now the only muscle that should be tight when you reach back is your shoulder. Your shoulder's tight, and as you come through, you start to tighten your bicep, and then as the elbow passes, that's when you tighten the forearm and come through the shot. We should do this in every part of the throw. You don't want to reach back as far as you can with the tightest grip. You want your grip to be slightly looser when you reach back, as your arm's looser. And as you come through, you slowly tighten the grip for the fullest tight release. Also, When you're doing the run-up, take a slower first step, a speedier second step, and slowly progress through the throw just like the arm swing to get everything in the great timing. The hit, the moment before release of any disc where power and acceleration meet. Practice this and you'll get to the top. Here's a hot tip for you. Now that I've shown you what the hit is, I want to show you how to work on it so you can practice all winter long, anytime you're on or off the course, and help develop your hit so you can apply it on the course. So, all you need is a hand-sized towel. Now, what I was talking about earlier when I talked about the hit was when you reach back to not be so firm. So when you reach back, I don't want to see the towel like this. I want to see the towel loose in the backswing. What you do is you have the towel loose in the backswing, and as you reach through, you slowly accelerating, keeping the towel as loose as you can, and then you accelerate through the throw. What you're going to do the first time you pick up the towel, since you don't have this acceleration down yet, you're going to throw and it's going to sound like this. It's got this nice whooshing sound. What you need to work on is this thing I call the sonic boom, or the hit. You need to reach back and leave it loose so the towel dangles, and as you come through, really concentrate on accelerating at the last possible second. When you do it correctly, you'll hear that really crisp noise you heard there that we call the hit. Now, in all my classes and all the clinics I've done across the country, this is one of the most useful tips. I promise you, if you get a towel and practice all winter in your living room, just practice the acceleration, you'll excel to the next level. Now that we have the arm movement and the proper weight transfer, I think it's time to add some footwork. We're going to see Champ's famous scissor step. Let's see how he does it. He takes his first step to the right. He takes his second step with his left leg behind his right, causing a scissor motion. Then he takes his right step forward, and now he lands in the standstill position we just worked on. With all the weight back on his left quad, he gets ready to shift his weight forward, bending his elbow, it passes the shoulder, and he follows through, lifting his leg, just like we did from the standstill. Now let's see the scissor step in full motion. Champ will give you his regular run-up. There's the cross, he rips, and that's how you do the scissor step.
Whichever one of these two powerful run-ups you choose, we'd like to stress that the weight be on the balls of your feet. The incidental heel touch now and then isn't going to hurt you. We don't want to see you rocking on your heels throughout the whole thing. We want to see on the balls of your feet and transferring your weight from ball to ball. With the incidental heel touch now and then, it's not going to hurt you.
Over the past 5 years on the professional tour, a lot of the top professionals have added a new run-up called the pivot hop step. And I'm going to take you through that step by step right now and show you how you can take your game to the next level. What you do is you line up just like Kenny did, but we're going to line up a little more on the back right corner of a tee pad. Instead of taking your first step in a straight motion, we're going to take our first step at a slight diagonal to the left. So our first step is going to be with our left foot instead of our right foot. So we take our first step with our left, and then we're going to follow that up with a larger right. When your foot lands in your larger right, you're going to twist on the ball of your foot, pivot we call it, and when that happens, your feet will almost be facing each other. Now this is the tricky part. What happens is you have to push with the ball of your foot this direction and the back of your back leg this direction so you glide across the ground. So it'll look something like this. You'll land, pivot, and hop. The trick is to when you land, you're going to land in a position like this, okay? When you land, you're going to be like this with your toe up. You're going to want to land, rotate from your toe to your ball of your foot, and then rotate through the shot back onto the ball of your foot and follow through. Key things to remember in this are, as you're doing it, your left arm and your left leg and your right arm and your right leg will always do the same thing throughout the shoot. What you do is, you just think about it. Left, little arm swing. Larger right, start to reach with the disc. As you turn, your right leg turns in, your right shoulder turns in to match. Then you reach through the shot. As you come through, you bend your elbow. Your right elbow and your right knee are bent directly over top of each other. Your left arm and your left leg are straight like this, holding the same movement. As they rotate exactly at the same time, your right elbow and your right knee, your left arm and your left leg follow, coming through and mimic each other. So the timing to this is very important. A couple of the mistakes that I see from beginners who are learning is they get up there, they hop, and they stop, and then throw, okay? What that does is that cancels all your momentum. The point of a run-up is to teach you to get momentum through the shot. Let's do it together. A little left, a larger right, pivot, hop, land in the position we know, let the elbow pass the shoulder, rip through the shot, and now you have your throw. That's the pivot hop step. One tip I'd like to give you though, when people are learning this shot, they tend to turn the disc over to the right a lot if they're right-handed. One thing that you can do to keep that from happening, and I learned this from the great champ Ken Climo, is as you throw, you pivot, you hop, and as you land here, instead of bringing your follow through around, forcing the disc over, what you're going to do is you're going to bring your follow through like this and then lift your leg behind you, holding for just a split second and following through. And how this looks in fast speed is it's not drastic where you're just going to hold your leg behind you and stand there. It's a quick movement and then your leg rotates forward like Ken showed you in his throw. So let me show you what that looks like in full speed. As you saw in that throw, as I came through, I ripped, my leg came up, followed through just like champs, but I was able to keep the disc from going to the right. So this is one good thing that you can do when you're learning the pivot hop step. But I'd say for most players, unless you're built like Ken Climo or Scott Stokely, this is the easiest way to generate power. So practice your pivot hop step, and we'll see you in the fairway.
The most important thing about aiming is keeping your eyes focused on the target as long as possible. When you do your turn back, your eyes are kind of come away from it for just a second, but you want to keep your eyes in the right corner of your eye socket so when you turn your head back, you can pick up the target line easier. Applied with this method is the straight line of the disc with the straight line of where you're shooting. If you want to shoot straight down the fairway, you want your disc to travel down that line as you're pulling through your body. So that disc is going to stay on the line you want to release and fly on all the way through. You don't want to come outside the circle like this. You want to stay on the line. For a straight shot, it's going to be a very straight torso and a straight pull through and a straight release. Now that we've taught you how to aim a disc straight down the fairway, we're going to experiment with some curves if you have to go right to left or left to right. My favorite one is the left to right. In order to get that curve, you must bend your back slightly back this way with the outside edge of the disc tilting up. This forces you to come through on an Anheuser angle and follow through low, which is going to carry your disc out on this angle, consequently turning it to the right. Now, the opposite of that would be the right to left throw. And you're going to want to hunch over and bend your weight this way to where your left edge of your disc is low and following through with your back bent and your hand going up at the end. That'll make the disc go right to left.
So now that you have all the techniques in your bag and you're ready to throw out on the course, there's a couple more things I really want to show you to make you excel at the top of your game. The most important thing when it comes to throwing, I believe, is the follow-through angle. So we've shown you how to follow through by walking through like Champ did on his throw. We've also showed you how to throw a hyzer and follow through by kicking your leg up behind you. But that's just the footwork. What we need to explain is the follow through of the arm, and this is the most important thing. As you come through and you're trying to throw a hyzer, you have to follow that line of hyzer on the angle that you want to throw all the way through the follow through. If you come through with hyzer and then you come across your chest like this, what's going to happen is you're telling the disc to go out with hyzer and flip to the right. So whatever shot you're going to throw, flat, hyzer, or anhyzer, your follow-through arm swing has to match the angle. So for hyzer, all the way up, like Champ showed you. For a flat shot, all the way across. For an anhyzer, follow that like a rainbow. So these are the three angles you have to work on. And what I see is a lot of players coming up with hyzer and flipping the wrist. Now I'm going to demonstrate for you what I mean with the follow-through arm angle. I have two discs in my hand, a very overstable disc and a very understable disc. Now most people would think the understable disc goes to the right and the overstable disc goes to the left. But with the wrist angle, you manipulate how the disc goes, and I want to demonstrate it. So with the understable disc, I'm going to throw and follow through with hyzer and watch this really beat up roller disc hyzer out. See how my arm followed through high and kept a nice hyzer angle through the shot and allowed the disc to hyzer to the left. Now, what most people would do is get their overstable disc and try to throw a hyzer. And what happens is they come through with hyzer, and since it's overstable, they power through the zone and come straight across. And this is what usually happens. They reach through with hyzer, and then their arm does not follow the angle, and they end up ripping it over, and then the disc ends up drifting to the right, not hyzering at all. And so what you got to realize is that the follow through of your arm has to match the shot, and this is the most common mistake I see with players. If you're going to throw a hyzer, follow through with hyzer. To recap the driving segment, we covered something called driver's ed, throwing 101. First thing we covered was stance. Make sure your feet are shoulder length apart and that you can get yourself in an athletic position so that you can make a good throw. Then we talked about arm, elbow, and wrist position. One of the key elements here was to make sure the elbow passes the shoulder before you accelerate in your throw. Also, we talked about weight transfer, how to shift your weight from front to back, from the back quad onto your balls of your feet. One thing I introduced is a new concept called the hit, how to go from slow to fast and really increase the acceleration at the end of your throw. I also gave you a hot tip on how to do that with a towel in your house anytime you have the chance or anywhere on the course. We went over Champ's scissor step. It's a classic step for many years. And then we talked about a new step seen on tour called the pivot hop step, the step that's taken me to the next level and allowed me to excel my game at the top championships. So finally, we talked about follow-through angle. Don't throw a hyzer and then flip your arm to the right and wonder why your disc turned over. Keep the angles right and you'll get the best results. So far throughout the video, we've taught you many techniques and a way to improve your game, but we haven't showed you everything. Look forward for more advanced videos in the future where we go in-depth in advanced technique. Until then, we'll see you
In the fairway.
In this segment, we're going to talk about approaching. Approaching is one of the most personalized aspects of your game, and as you practice, you'll develop your own preferences. But there's some certain tips that we worked on in mental approaching that Champ's going to talk about today.
One of those tips is called the confidence ring. It's a ring around the basket, which would be 25 to 30 feet for most people, where you're going to make more than half of your putts when you leave the disc inside that ring. And then there's the no stress zone, which is so close to the basket that you will not miss. You can just go up there and tap it in. Those are two key elements of the approach. You want to get it inside the confidence ring and, if possible, inside the no stress zone.
When you're approaching the basket, everybody's always just trying to land under the basket. And one of the most important things to realize is if you miss a little bit left or right, as long as you put it in your confidence ring, you should still be able to make the next shot. So you don't have to be so stressed out trying to put it right under the basket every time you throw an approach.
Through trial and error, I've established that my confidence ring is about 30 feet from the basket, which gives you a 60-foot diameter circle in which to approach into. And you'd also like to make at least 50% or a little more than that of your putts from this area. And we're going to help you develop your own confidence ring. Now we're approaching the edge of my no stress zone, where I'm confidently going to make 100% of these putts, even in adverse conditions. And you must find this ring before you can find the edge of your confidence ring, which is where you're going to try and make 50% of your putts or more. And this is a much bigger area to throw an approach into than just a tiny basket.
We're going to wrap up the approach segment by talking about a little technique. As I said earlier, lots of preferences go along, but there's some basic techniques we should follow when approaching. You should line up both shoulders to the center of the pole, as Ken's demonstrating here. Your feet should be pointed 90 degrees away from the target so that you're in a comfortable stance where you can bend your knees. Now you want to practice shifting your weight from front to back, and when you throw, you will push from your back leg onto your front leg, lifting your back leg in the air. Once you have your stance established and you're comfortable with your lineup, now it's time to talk about what the arm's going to be doing in the approach. Now there's a slight difference to driving in two ways when we talk about approaching. The first thing is, we're always going to pass with a clean throw across the chest, letting the elbow lead past the shoulder. But in approaching, you don't need as much power and you're trying to throw more of a controlled shot, so your elbow will always be lower than your hand. That's a very crucial point to approaching. Make sure that your elbow is always lower than your hand when approaching. And in the swing, the only difference is we've taught you to slowly accelerate through the swing with an impact zone called the hit. But in approaching, we don't really use the hit at all. For approaching, we want a more controlled, smooth swing with the arm in a continual motion across the chest. Now that we've got you in the proper stance, we've got your arm swing moving, there's one more thing to think about when approaching. You got to think about where you're aiming. So when approaching, you want to have a controlled shot with your disc slightly nose up, and you're going to try to aim into the confidence ring, which we talked about. Let's see Champ do it. As you can see, he slightly missed a little bit, 25 feet right of the basket, but he's put it in his confidence ring. And being that he feels confident making the stroke 75% of the time in that ring, he hasn't made a bad shot. So when you're throwing an approach, think about this. You have a huge area up there. Don't get discouraged when you made that approach and it lands 25 feet right of the basket, because the discouragement you have when you walk up to the next shot can affect your next shot. Realize that you have an area that you're confident in and be confident when you approach. Now get ready for the most comprehensive hands-on disc golf putting clinic you've ever experienced. push putting versus spin putting. Two different techniques. Choose what works best for you, but realize the push putt has less variance and more consistency, and the spin putt has more distance and accuracy. Before we break down the push putt, we got to talk about a few things. First thing to talk about is what kind of putter to use. We're going to recommend using a Big B KC AVR. First, we got to talk about the grip. How do you pick up your putter when you're going to push putt? Well, first way to do it is imagine your hands down at your side. You're going to pick up the putter by putting it right here in your crease. You're going to pick it up. You're going to have the disc like this. You're going to lay it out with your thumb on top and your four fingers on the back. Then you're going to then pull your hands into the rim of the disc into a comfortable position so it looks something like this. This is very similar to Ken's fork grip that we taught earlier, but here's the variation. In the variation, your middle finger is going to be slightly out, so that gives you more stabilization on the plate of the disc. This allows you to have more control over the flight of the disc and the angle of the disc when putting. One thing I wanted to talk about is the KC Big Bead, and this is important. When you're going to push putt or any putt, I'd recommend a putter with a bead, because the bead was designed to go in your first digit. So if everybody takes their first digit and looks, there's a line right here that fits directly on the bead, naturally flush. That's where you know where to put your finger. This is the grip you're looking for, the two fingers stacked like the fork grip. The middle finger does not have to be stacked as Kenny does in his fork grip, but can be more out to give you more stabilization on the plate. Now, in the grip, the only difference is you're not squeezing it as tight as you can like you did in the driving grip. We're gonna have a nice loose grip, nice and firm though, where it's in your hand with no space, but nice and firm, not as tight as you can. You wanna have a nice, strong, loose grip. When I say strong and loose, meaning the front of your grip, the thumb is very strong on top, pushing down, but the underside, the fingers are much looser. Now that we've developed our grip and we have the disc in our hand, the next thing to talk about is not putting it in the basket, but what your feet are gonna be doing in your legs. So let's get ourselves in the proper stance. In the stance, we have a line that goes directly from the pole through your front toe and out your back heel. That's how you know you're on the proper line. So you get in a comfortable stance with your legs about shoulder length apart, and the line will run directly through your front toe, through your back heel, and you want to be in a position again where you can bend your knees. Now if you look at Ken right now, you can see that he's going to practice rocking. He's going to come back, put his weight on his front toe, and then lift his heel up. He's going to rock back and forth. And as he lifts his back leg, you'll notice he reaches his arm forward. This is the most crucial part to the putt. You want your arm and your back leg to match. If you can have them come up simultaneously, that is the perfect putt. Now I'm not saying anybody's perfect, and mine's probably not perfect, Ken's is probably not perfect, but you want to get to the closest you can. So as your back leg comes up, your right arm comes up, and they match at the exact same time. The closer you are to exactly getting those timed, the better your putt will be. You have to be able to feel the weight. So as you're rocking back and forth, you'll notice that when you come back, all the weight will be on your back leg. When that weight's on your back leg, like Ken's demonstrating here, that will be the time that your arm is back as far as you need to take it. Now the arm cannot get any longer than it is. So what you want to do is have your arm down like Ken's showing as far as it can be, keeping your arm straight. As you rock forward, you'll go from your heel to your toe, and you'll then lift up your arm as you lift your back leg in the exact timing, and you will look like a pirouette. Now that was the perfect putt because we're talking about the 12-time champion Ken Climo. But now we're going to talk about some of the mistakes you're going to find when you're first trying it. Now Ken's going to demonstrate what happens when you hold on to the putt too long and don't push in the right zone. So in this putt, Ken's going to push too late. Makes him pull to the right if you push too late and too high. So you want to make sure that you're pushing in the middle, not too late. You don't want to hold the putt too long. Now the opposite mistake is to let go of it too soon and push too early. As Ken's doing here, he's pushed too early and it causes a nose down effect, and a lot of times you hit low or hit the cage. To avoid that, we have to talk about the angle of the putter in your hand. So first you want to have the putter so you can barely read the stamp, slightly nose up, as Ken's demonstrating here. And when you come back, you want to release the putter somewhere between the rim of the basket and the top band. Anywhere in that zone is going to be your sweet spot if you're a push putter. So you want to release it right when your arm comes above the bottom of the basket and somewhere in the chains before you get to the top of the basket. Any point in that release is you're going to make it. And that's the great thing about the push putt. Now that we have your hand and your arm and your body in the right position, we got the swing down, the swing plane. Now we got to talk about how you're actually going to get the momentum you need to get it into the basket. In the release, there's 2 or 3 things that I want to concentrate on, and the first thing is considered finger spring. When you're bringing the disc down like Ken's demonstrating, you're going to bring the disc to the point just above the rim of the basket like we talked about. And when you get to that point, you're going to spring your fingers forward through the pole to an open position where you could shake somebody's hand. So your hand's going to be closed and you're going to spring your fingertips forward. And that's how you're going to get the momentum. That's going to cause a slight rotation on the disc, making it fly and give it that smooth look Ken gets when he's putting. I know a lot of times when you start, you get a lot of wobble on your disc, and this is the kind of thing that's going to help prevent that. Motion. Now that we've shown you the many techniques of putting, now we're going to talk a little bit about how to practice and increase your consistency. There's 2 drills I use to get better, and I do them in my backyard. The first thing to remember is that game time practice is the most important. So I want you to get in your backyard. I want you to imagine, put a disc on the ground, imagine that you threw this disc from 300-400 feet, okay? Now a lot of this is in your mind because that's what putting is, it's all in your mind. So I want you to have a mini. I don't want you just to putt from the disc. I want you to then mark the disc, pick up your putter, and then I want you to walk away to a bag that you brought with you, your bag, put your disc away, reach for the disc that you would use from this distance. For me, it's my KC AVR. Then I want you to do everything like it's game time experience. I want you to pick up some grass, toss it, check the wind. I want you to look over to an imaginary person that in your mind and say, thanks, I know it's a good shot. Because a lot of times when you make a shot, people say to you, nice shot, you don't want that distraction. Be prepared for that. Be prepared for the wind. Be prepared for everything. Real game time. Then I want you to close your eyes and think about the last time you had game time. And think about a putt, visualize that moment, try to climb into that space. Now you're in that space, you line it up, and I want you to do your full routine. For me, it's 3 pumps, 1, 2, 3, then I bring it down, bend my knees, and I lift and release. Then I want you to continue to pick up your mini, walk it all the way into the basket, clear your disc, look over to the imaginary person on this side and say, thanks, because he just said nice putt to you. You walk back to your bag, you put it away, and you do that from a different spot. Now you do this all over your backyard, this will give you a good game time experience. In the muscle memory drill, it's going to require a stack of putters. Now in most sports, you do this in basketball, you do this in baseball, you do this in golf, you're going to do just rapid fire to develop your muscles and get them used to the release. So pick any distance, I like to keep it close to give yourself confidence. You're just going to line up and one after another, you're just going to put them in the basket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to keep doing that. You're going to do that 100 times in your yard every night until you get the muscle memory. Then don't forget, every time you do the 100 putts, do at least 20 game time putts. So 100 putts repetition, 20 game time putts. This is how I developed the mental ability and the physical ability to score like I do in the tournaments. There's going to be some situations where the push putt's not always the best choice. In that case, we are going to endorse using some spin putts, and let's talk a little bit about the technique. The only difference in the spin putt is the stance is the same, the line through is the exact same. The only change is when you come up, you're going to spin your wrist from the center of the pole to the outside and break your wrist open. So you're going to come up and spin your wrist to the open. We're going to break the wrist, we're going to call that. The time to use this putt is going to be when you're farther away from the basket, or in a case where you might have to go to one knee to putt under something, or if the wind is in a situation where there's a lot of headwind and you really want to get it there safe, you're going to want to try a low spin putt and let the wind carry it there so you can land in your no stress zone. The last situation where you'd want to use a spin putt is maybe if you had to go around a bush or over a bush. You would then step out a little bit and try to spin it over the bush or around the bush. When you jump putt, you need to be farther away than 10 meters from the basket, and there's 2 ways to do that. The first way is to line up with your right foot on the mark, and you just jump and push it forward, okay? This is the way you'll see on most courses, anywhere you go. You'll see most players doing that, but in this video, we want to recommend a different type of spin putt, jump putt. And that's where you're gonna go through the lie, but not leave the ground until after you let go of the disc. Because it's really crucial to maintain contact with the ground. It gives you more stable release and makes your putt legal. What I'm gonna recommend is putting your right foot on the line. You're gonna line up on the line. You're gonna get it almost in a half straddle. You're gonna lean your weight forward over the lie, and then you're just gonna walk through the putt, okay? I'm gonna recommend this putt only over 35 feet. Practice it from distances Everybody has their own natural spin putt. My style is a little different than yours maybe. I want to show you a drill now that'll help you find your natural spin putt. Now when it comes to spin putting, there's lots of different styles and techniques, but one thing's consistent, the wrist moves forward. Now that happens naturally for anybody who throws a Frisbee for the first time. So what I've developed is a drill that allows you to find your natural spin putt. Now here's how you do it. You're going to take two putters. You're going to take a putter with a bead that we talked about, a KC AVR of some type or a big bead, and you're going to lob it towards the basket, and while it's in the air, you're then going to, without thinking, just spin the disc into the target as fast as you can and try to beat the other putter there. This is going to give your brain not a chance to react, and you're going to do your natural movement. So it should look something like this when you're practicing in your backyard. You're going to lob the first one and spin the second one in. Lob the first one and spin the second one in. That'll create your natural spin putt, and it will give you the opportunity. Now how you're going to reinforce that is, you're going to do this 5 times, over and over again. Lob, spin, lob, spin. Once you've done it 5 times and you got a feeling for that spin putt, you're going to walk back, mark your lie 5 feet further than you started. And then you're going to pick up the same 5 putters, and you're going to do that spin putt 5 times as fast as you can. Repetition, fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you do that a few times, you'll get the hang for it, and then you can work on adjusting for distance and height, and then you'll develop your natural spin putt so you can start making them outside the circle. Now that you see that the spin putt has an additional hinge than the push putt, you understand that in all sports, to become consistent, you want to have less movement. So with the push putt, you have just the one movement, and with the spin putt, you have the 2 movements that have to happen. So if you want to become more consistent around the green, reduce yourself to 1 movement, work on your speed and height, and you'll become a great putter. In this hot tip, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between push putting and spin putting and how you can increase your release. This is the kind of drill you can do at home anytime. All you need is a phone book and a table. So we're going to have Ken demonstrate it. He's going to try to spin his wrist and try to put the phone book right here on the black target. See how he missed a little bit to the left? That's because when you break your wrist, it's harder to find a left or right plane. Now let's see him try to do it push putt style. Ken's getting his push putt stance. He's going to get his arm straight. He's going to try to lob it right here on this X. Look at that, he puts it right on the X. This drill is trying to teach you to keep your arm from going left or right. When you push putt, you're able to keep the disc in the middle, but if you break your wrist, you end up missing left or right. Motion. So practice this at home and realize that you got to tape your phone book up. Find a good table, practice, and you'll become a great push putter. If you go to flyingdiscmagazine.com, you'll find a new game that develops this game time practice and the repetition all in a game, and see if you can beat me and Kenny. Go to flyingdiscmagazine.com and get the details. We're getting ready to try our first game of perfect putt. We got our 10 putters and we got our scorecard.
Let's make some chain music.
We just got done with our first game of perfect putt. I took 50 from this side and Ken took 50 from that side. What did we score, Ken?
Looks like we scored a 211, Dave.
Was there any variations?
Light wind and not much slope.
All right, that's the score to beat, 211. Go to the website, download your scorecard, and try to beat our score today. To recap the putting segment, let's talk about the few things we covered throughout the video. First off, we talked about the various techniques from spin putting to push putting. As we said, go with what works for you, but we would recommend using the push putt inside your confidence ring. Secondly, we talked about mechanics. We covered everything from grip to stance to footwork to arm work and to release. These are the 5 points I'd recommend spending the most time on when you're practicing. Finally, we covered practice drills and games to help increase your putting confidence. And I guarantee if you practice these techniques that we taught you in the video, you'll lower your scores. So let's review. We taught you how to drive and how to approach wisely.
And how to put the biscuit in the basket. We hope you've enjoyed the DVD and you've picked up some helpful tips along the way.
Also, don't forget to visit our website, flyingdiscmagazine.com, for additional tips and information on the future titles in this disc golf series.
Hopefully one day.
We'll see you in the leader group. What's up, Paul? We're just relaxing by the pool here in Hollywood as we just wrapped up filming the most comprehensive disc golf video ever.
You know, I'm wondering about what
That's for real, huh?
yeah, these are beautiful things.
Oh.
I showed the most
I always represent local hip hop scene.
That's underground, that's
about-
be supported. God bless you.
This is about all the tricks I have, but someday I'll be able to be a trickster like the champ.
Hold on, kid.
It's about all the tricks I know with the frisbee, but maybe one day I'll be as cool as the champ.
It was there.
Whoa! One thing to remember is don't judge your game by how you throw in the sand because it's really tricky footwork. You need a solid ground underneath you to throw great shots. So the beach is all about fun. That's where frisbee came from. So don't forget to bring it back there sometime.